Bill, we're going to try something different for those that are, that follow us on the YouTube channel, that listen to the podcast, and they saw a new episode pop up on a random like Wednesday. The reason is we're going to expand a little bit, but at the same time, be more specific. And in this case, that Range Life, our flagship show, a show sometimes about golf, is exactly that. That Range Life Gear Talk is going to be about golf gear. So viewers and listeners, when you see this episode like randomly drop, because what we're going to do here is when news breaks around golf equipment, you and I, we hustle our asses to the studio and we give the people what they need to know about new gear.
I think deep down at heart, because we have the flagship show, people forget we are raging golf gear nerds at heart. And I think there are people who consume our content that were like, can I get the golf nerd? I don't know, portion of your guys' content in one place. And hopefully this equipment cycle season, this podcast will be an outlet for just that.
That's right. So without further ado, let's get this thing going. It's time for a gear talk. Okay, so just real quick, even more of a reason for subscribers, to hit the bell and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and even more of a reason to subscribe to the podcast, because, we don't usually know, or we have somewhat of an idea when stuff drops, but, if you're not hitting the bell and subscribing to the podcast, you're not going to get the notification that something new is happening and that we've just got some new information. So just real quick, subscribe, hit the bell, like the video, the whole thing. But let's get into our first episode here of Gear Talk, officially, sort of, the new version of it. And it's apropos that this company would be our first, because we love it so much. And we do have much of their equipment in our bag as we speak. But it is our friends over at Tour Edge that have announced today, as this episode has dropped.
I was going to ask, are we releasing this as it drops?
Oh, for sure.
A day out? Okay. All right. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
No, the minute the embargo ends, it's going public.
Should we explain that too to people? It is nice being on the other side of the curtain, so to speak. You oftentimes get to find out about a lot of this neat golf stuff before the public. So this is, Bill, why do you do what you do in the golf world? What does that necessarily mean? I don't know. Not a ton, but it's fun. It's fun to get to find this stuff out a little early and learn about it and ask questions. So
it's true. And then to me, that's part of the fun is, like you said, getting that information, asking the questions. And then for me, the fun is turning it around and being able to share it.
Correct.
We can share it.
Exactly.
With a little bit of insight. Okay. So Tour Edge, they have announced the release of their new series, Hot Launch 523.
Yep.
Right. And they, as they have in the past, God, what's it been now? 3 years? 3 iterations? This is like the 7th hot launch line, I think. Right. So I think I read 7th. But yeah, this E versus C series concept is 3 years old now. Right.
And the difference being their extreme game improvements or extreme spec for the folks who want all the help and forgiveness they can get. And the C series being the competitive spec series, also still super forgiving.
Correct.
But a little more
They're both game improvement.
Yes.
Irons, right? And clubs, I should say. But sorry, keep going.
I was just going to say, for more traditional shaping, more familiar looks, square, the competitive spec, the C series has it's going to sit more square at address. And I think I often think they're geared more towards the senior player, not necessarily, but people who grew up playing a certain style of golf club, and they're just, maybe they're getting up there in years and need a little more help getting the ball going, and but still want something that looks good. That said, right. You're a fool to think that's all they're for, because they are very good golf clubs. Traditionally, you and I have not hit the new ones yet, but traditionally, very long, very forgiving, and shockingly good for their price points. And that's the other thing to think of as we get into here, and we'll discuss as we go along. But the Hot Lunch series is Tour Edge's best bang for your buck by a mile. Very extremely affordable price points with really some incredible technology and incredible playability. That's my 2 cents.
And that's a good lead in as we start talking about some of the technology that's in the E and the C. Do you have a preference of where we should begin?
I guess maybe start out with the big dogs, right? The drivers, because that's the moneymaker. That's what everybody's here for. $269.99 retail, which is a steal right there. Both of them are coming stock with stock options of a UST Mamiya shaft. I don't know a ton about it yet, but whether it's made for them or whatnot, but those guys have been making golf shafts for a little bit. They know what they're doing. They make good stuff. So check that out. Let's talk E series first. So the E series is going to be your extreme game improvement. That's the E, extreme. Keep that in your head as we go through this. And easiest driver to hit in the market for slower swing speeds, or maybe medium swing speeds. That is the selling point of this club. It has a super low and back center of gravity, which means that ball is going to want to get up in the air easier for you. And it's going to have a little more spin, but that's a good thing for what this club's designed to do.
Right.
We want it to hold it there. So that's
spin
what spin's going to do.
Right. Spin is going to hold it in the air so that it can travel.
Right.
Right.
Now, people with faster swing speeds who generate a little more spin don't want that. It's not who this club is for. So, where you want that ball to fight the wind and roll, this player wants to hold it up there and carry as long as possible. They're not so much worried about 40 yards of rollout and all that. They don't want their ball to fall out of the sky. While we're on that subject, it also raises the MOI. The MOI, or one of the things this club does, is they give you a higher MOI, which means your club is resistant to twist at impact. So if you think of something like a car running into a pole, it's going to kind of want to go around it or twist, where with the higher the MOI, when it hits the ball, it wants to stay square at the angle it's traveling. So you will be more accurate and not hit the ball as offline. One of the key technologies, returning. The Houdini sole technology. That is, it's a unique kind of pyramid shaped looking thing on the sole of the club. Maybe if you're watching this on YouTube, Chris, you can just drop a picture in here and there'll be a Houdini sole for you. Right. That's what's bringing a lot of that weight back and creating that higher MOI. But these new 523s have some pretty big technology borrowed from the Exotics lineup this year.
I was going to say,
the Ridgeback technology, which is essentially a spine that's running from the center of the face back on the crown to the trailing edge of the club, and it's going to make the body of the club more rigid. So when it hits the ball, it doesn't want, like I said, it doesn't want to twist, but the head also doesn't want to warp as much, and there isn't energy loss. So instead of transferring energy into the head changing shape and whatnot, it's going to hold its shape and transfer the energy back into the ball for higher ball speeds, better control, the likes. Really nice in the Exotic series. Great piece of technology to bring down into the E523 driver. Likewise, taken from the Exotic series, Diamond Face VFT technology.
That's right.
If you've heard us talk about Tour Edge clubs before, you will know this, but I'll remind you, these are mini little diamond shapes behind the face of the club that act as little trampolines. So they create that spring effect, help the ball launch off the face faster, but it also makes it more forgiving. It allows that tour edge to get thinner at the perimeter of the club,
right.
So the heel, the toe, etc.
Right.
So on miss hits, you won't lose as much ball speed. Makes a big difference. What else? So this is the extreme game improvement driver. We don't want to slice the ball, right? We want to hit straight shots and maybe get a little help drawing it. Has some offset to it. All right. So you're going to have a little bit of offset in that heel. That's fine. That's what this club is designed for.
Yep.
They also have a heel weight. So if you look at the bottom of the club, you'll, in addition to that Houdini sole, toward in that Houdini, the word marking, you'll see it at the rear of the club. There's a weight toward the bottom heel area, right where kind of near the hosel, that is going to make that part of the club come through slower than the toe part, which means the club's going to come around faster, make the ball go left or straight, correct, not right. So if you're a big slice hitter, this will help correct that. Won't be perfect, won't save you. Like if you're slicing them off the planet, you're slicing them off the planet. There's only so much they can do for you. But if you hit a little bit of too much of a cut, your power fades a little strong, this is going to help you control that and bring it back and play a lot. I would say a moderate slicer will now be able to fairly easily turn that into a controllable fade that stays in play for them. I have done it firsthand. I will just tell you that.
Yeah.
All right, what am I missing there? The power channel. They have
the last one, I think. Yeah, this power channel.
This power channel that's right behind the face. It helps with the face flex. Again, that's going to increase your speed at impact, or I should say your ball speed at impact. Wants to jump off the face more. Lets the face flex back and rebound quickly, and therefore bigger, better, faster. There you go.
Right. I can tell you too, just from experience with the E521, which we played a match, E versus C. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but the driver, so I tend to hit a little baby fade, my natural shot shape. With the E521, that was a draw. Because it was just swinging that toe around and getting me in position. So it was helped me close that face a little bit. And so the technology works, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move on to the C523 driver, the other one, the competitive spec one. Looks much more traditional. Your sort of pair / capital D shape, as I like to say, or C shape, but it'll look like a traditional 460cc driver. The weighting differences, this doesn't have Houdini sole. It doesn't have that heel weight in the sole. It has one in the rear position. So it's going to have a low and back center of gravity for easier launch, a little bit of forgiveness there, a pretty high MOI as well. Not as high as the other one, but still high. Still going to be easy to keep that ball straight. And then they don't say here that they have Ridgeback on it, but they have the sole rail design. So a similar concept. So the Exotics driver had so go back to last year, the C722 had Ridgeback down the top and had Razor sole or Riser sole. I can't remember what it's called. Sorry, that's bad on me. On the bottom too, to keep that head more rigid. Right. In this case, they took that sole technology or that concept and did that in the C523 driver. So that will help it keep its rigidity as well. And it's also contributing to bringing the center of gravity down as opposed to on top of the head. Also has diamond face VFT, variable face thickness, by the way. That's what VFT stands for. Look at that. I could say it was off the top of my head, but it's hard. I'm looking at stuff here too. That's right.
Power channel is also there.
Okay.
Same concept. It looks to me in the pictures, it's a little bit larger than it is on the E driver. I don't know that for a fact. Okay. I'm just looking at pictures. That could be an incorrect thing. Point is, still has a power channel. Right. Going to make the ball come off faster, give you that face flex. We already talked about the shafts for both of them. It has something called the 360-degree cup face design. All right. So
yeah, I saw that. What is that?
Essentially, it goes around the top. So like the top line all the way down to the sole, as opposed to just being like a flat piece that's welded on. So therefore your face thickness is better controlled. Your flex is better. It's more consistent. And in theory, you're going to get, you're going to get better tolerances, and I would say a stronger titanium face.
Got it.
More ball speed, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it.
So that's the drivers. Now, do we want to stick? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to give a quick overview. So, what do they both have? They both have the BFT diamond face technology on it. They've got the power channel, right? And then that's basically then from there, we've got a weight and the Houdini sole on the E, kind of in the back and the bottom of the club.
Yep.
And then on the C, we have the rear sole weight, much more kind of traditional looking sole weight on that driver. And I think that, and then the offset on the E as well.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Now, consistent theme into the fairway woods. We'll start with the E series again there, but they also have a power channel. It also, in the E523, also has a more heel weight, some offset design. Want this thing to not go right. That is the purpose. It has a shallower face too. Yep. So that's going to be a little more, it's going to be better for a sweepy shot.
Right.
It's going to be easier to get the ball up in the air and carrying. I don't know about you, but I've noticed the higher handicap players tend to have a hard time getting their fairway metals in the air.
Can we just talk to the high handicap real quick? That's one of the most difficult shots to hit on a golf course.
Yeah,
is a wood or hybrid off the deck. That's a hard shot. So just take it easy on yourselves, okay? If you flub it, don't worry.
Fairway wood, in my opinion, is the hardest club in the bag to hit. Hardest club in the bag. Houdini sole, again, still there, same concept. Diamond face, same concept. So very similar to the driver, just smaller head, hitting different shots. I will tell you, in the 522 series last year, the E522 hybrid and fairway wood really stood out to me. They were awesome. I'll be really interested to see if these are sort of the bells of the ball for the 523 series, but check that out.
Now, are the are the heads a little larger in the hybrid and fairway? Do we know? Because I know that was part of it too, right? They had it wasn't quite like the pear shape or the tour player shape.
Yeah, it's not going to be a tiny little peanut looking thing by any means, but it's not too bad in the fairway wood. I mean, obviously, as we're recording this, we haven't seen them in hand yet,
right?
But they weren't huge either. They were pretty. I would say it was a pretty fair, moderate size.
Okay,
and which brings us into the C523 fairway just as well. Same thing there. I would say it's not a small tour preferred profile, but it's pretty traditional and I would say moderate-ish. To me, it doesn't look like $170. I believe the fairway woods are $169.99. Does not look like $170 fairway wood. It has a great looking, I would say, perfect fairway wood profile.
Yeah.
Take that for what it's worth.
It's so crazy too. I mean, you think about how good, and we both play exotics in our bag drivers. I have the driver and the hybrid and the 3-wood actually. And how great that technology. I just love that the technology is going kind of down into these other clubs now. Right. Because it's only going to help. I just love that. It just makes me happy.
So that player preferred shaping, by the way, keep this in mind. It isn't as shallow as the E series. So if you really like your shallow fairway woods, this might not be it for you. And it doesn't have the offset. So if you really fight the rights with a fairway wood, I don't think the C series is going to bail you out as much. I think the C series is good for the fairway players. Like, I just can't get them up in the air and I can't get them flying. So that's where they cost me. I'm not directionally challenged. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people hit their fairway woods like 8 feet off the ground a long ways.
Right.
So this has the rear sole weight again, like the driver does. Easier to get it up and flying. It's really a nice fairwood. To me, it's one of those, I don't want to spend $400 on a new fairway wood, but $170, and I like to think I'm a pretty decent player. It's still pretty good. So
yeah,
it's a great little, I don't know. I'd say versatile. Anyone can play it fairway wood in my mind.
Yep, I agree for sure.
Do you want to talk about hybrids now? Just go to the hybrids.
Yeah, let's touch on the hybrids real quick. I know a lot of the technology is roughly the same, but let's touch. I know listeners, viewers, when Tour Edge does a hot launch release, they do not mess around.
They do not.
John Claffey and the kids over there, it's like, here's all of it.
Yeah.
So that's why, sometimes we'll do one of these shows and it'll be like a driver. But that's not how Tour Edge does stuff. That's not how they do things. They're like, here's everything. Tell everyone about all of it. So that's what we're going to do. So let's talk hybrids real quick.
If there's one thing Tour Edge knows how to do, it's make a great fairway wood and a great hybrid. And I think that gap between exotics and hot launch really narrows in the hybrids. And conceptually, it's the same thing. The E523 is going to be the super forgiving extreme game improvement, right? It has a little bit of offset Houdini sole again, and heel weight. It has that heel sole weight again. Now, this is a larger hybrid. I am comfortable in saying, as far as hybrids go, this falls into the mini fairway wood category.
I was going to say like 7 wood.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah.
If you like offset and you want to get that ball, I mean, I have a hard time saying really anything other than that. It's going to play like a mini fairway wood. Some people, fairway woods are too big of a footprint for them, and they like the smaller head or a little bit smaller head, but need some of that forgiveness. It's a tough battle. I think this fits that bill pretty well. Now, the difference is you can get these hybrids, these E523 hybrids, and higher lofts, so you can transition from your fairway woods a little further into your bag, right? So 4 irons, 5 irons, etc. So still a shallow face, okay? Still easy. Again, in the air, not going right. That's what we're doing here. That's the goal. Right. That's what it's going to do. So same concept. Still has diamond face VFT in it. Still has a power channel. Fairway woods, forgot to say it. They have the power channels. All the woods have these power channels. All right.
Yep.
Houdini sole really comes into play, by the way, in the fairway wood and driver fairway wood and hybrid as well, because the turf interaction, it's almost like a little point in the sole. It's a good call. Yeah. And that's going to reduce what's dragging through the turf. So you get a nice little crisp cut through it. And even if you hit the ball, you tend to take those clubs in a little fat. The Houdini sole is not only giving you some center of gravity help, but it's going to help with your turf interaction quite a bit too. So, and I've seen it with my own eyes.
It's true.
It works. So
God knows I've hit behind a golf ball many a times with the E521, I think. And it was fine. So
C523 hybrid, still a little on the larger side, but more competitive spec, that pear peanut shape that people like in a hybrid. It is not miniature by any means. If you want that iron replacement kind of look, I will not put this in that category, nor should you. That said, it's not going to be the giant hybrid where you go, this is like one of those super hybrids that's a mini fairway wood. It's a larger footprint hybrid. It reminds me a lot of the hybrids of the early 2000s to 2010. It's good. It looks really good. The shape's really good.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something tiny and miniature, not this necessarily, but it's not huge. It looks really great. Sits square at address. Here's what I'll say. Those who hit a hybrid with, have that left gear effect, you might see a little bit of that in this too, but it's not promoting that. Okay. It's easy to get the ball up in the air. Has again that rear sole weight. That's the other thing too.
Right.
Like they have to make it big enough to give you room to give you that weight in the back to help get that ball up and carrying.
Yeah.
You can play it both ways. Both shots are there. It's a pretty versatile hybrid. Much like I was saying about the C523 Fairway wood. It's a versatile club that could fit a lot of people, and it's I think $149.99. I believe we saw $150 for quite frankly what will be an incredible hybrid, and I think quite literally is better than a lot of other hybrids from other brands out there. Most likely, just my 2 cents. What do I know?
Well, I mean, it's a good call out though. We will eventually have these in hand, and we will put them to the test.
Yeah, now's a good time to go to the public service announcement. And actually, every time we've talked about the hot launch stuff, I just can't get over how good the clubs are for the price point. It's incredible. And the hybrids and fairway woods especially, it's just so good. Yeah. So good. Okay. All right. Irons.
Now there's more, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk E523 iron woods, I think. Is that what they call them?
They did in the last two, but I'm looking at this thing here, and they list them as a E523 iron, but say these hollow ironwood designs. So, I think we can call them both. But why, Chris, talk about why they call them iron woods.
Well, because they've got you talked about the Houdini sole helping hybrids and 3 woods and 5 woods get through the turf. Well, the irons have Houdini technology on the bottoms of them, and they're the thicker sole bottom of the irons. And I want to say, you'll know this more than I will, better than I will, but they kind of invented this style. Tour Edge kind of did this first with their iron woods, and then it is what it sounds like. They're irons, but they've got some soul to them.
And they have the hollow body with perimeter weighting again, albeit concave. That's new this year. Instead of like being rounded on the back, it's concaved in. Gives you a little more iron look from a dress, little cleaner. But that hollow perimeter weighting again is a common theme here. Super forgiving. Easy to launch the ball in the air for an extreme game improvement club, right?
They're so easy to hit. They're so easy to hit.
So easy to hit.
The 521s, anyways, the ones I hit, they were so easy.
So that's that they are a larger iron, but that's a big deal too. Other companies who make similar clubs, you look down at them and they're just these giant beefy things, where I feel for the most part, maybe not as much in the shorter irons, but that's sort of to be expected. When you look down at them, they hide that big body pretty well. Don't get me wrong. It's a thick top line. They're bigger heads. There's offset. So they look like an extreme game improvement iron, but they don't have this giant body sticking out behind the top line, which is, like a driving iron. Yeah. That's the other thing too. They're essentially all driving irons that are actually just very easy to hit.
Right.
So, you can get various configurations of these. By the way, that Houdini sole on the irons are saying here reduces turf interaction by 35%.
There you go.
So it's that much less club negatively on a bad swing, negatively impacting the direction of the ball. Keep that in mind. Yeah. They have a UST Mamiya shaft in them as well. Those guys have been making graphite iron shafts for quite a while that have been notoriously good. So have to imagine these are solid. Again, I want to say let's just go and look. I act like I can't check it for you real fast here, Chris. Irons are $79.99 per iron. So that's the C523. The E is $99.99 a club, because they're mini woods. They're a little more than a steel casting. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So let's go to the C irons. Okay. Man, we got a lot to get through here. A lot of clubs. The C523 irons, traditional game improvement iron. VibraCore technology in these guys. What's VibraCore technology, you might ask? That is essentially tour edges injection, as the hollow body irons have come around and everybody has their materials they're injecting to dampen the sound, improve the feel.
Their proprietary goo.
There's this VibraCore. It's a high-grade TPU. All right. Deep undercut pockets. So basically it means there's a cavity back design in there to make that ball spring off the face. Again, easy launch, easy carry, all of that. Super forgiving. They say it's a compact design. They say a sharper, higher toe. If you look at them, they're pretty good looking, moderate game improvement iron. These aren't gonna you aren't gonna look at one of these and go, wow, this is my grandpa's butter knife from the 1960s.
No, I was gonna say just a traditional game improvement looking iron.
Right. They have
from a top line perspective and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I might argue a little nicer. Actually, a little more updated, modern, a little more in that player's distance iron look and less like big beefy game improvement iron look.
I agree with that. You're right.
If that matters to you,
you're right.
Toe weighted design. What does that mean? This is essentially creating the stability, and the way I tend to explain this to people, think about it, that hosel and it meets at the heel, and there's a lot of mass in an iron there, and that brings the center of gravity towards that. Throw some weight out in the toe, that stretches your sweet spot more. So it doesn't just all of a sudden like relocate it. It just makes it longer. So more of that club, it has a sweetness to it. It's also going to keep that club by having essentially weight in both sides straighter, more stable. So you're able to hit.
It's an MOI thing too.
Right. Exactly. Right. So that toe weighting's nice. Power lofted setup. So by placing the lower and deeper center of gravity in all these clubs and that higher launch and whatnot, they can loft them a little stronger for you. So your 4 iron is going to play a little stronger and all the way through the set. I want to say as you get to the shorter irons, it's a little less dramatic, but people get scared of that, and there's no reason to. It's essentially allowing
it's pretty common too. Like,
it makes your 6 iron easier to hit a little bit longer,
and it makes it a little easier to hold a green with a 6 iron.
So you're hitting an 8 iron into green where normally you might be hitting a 6 iron. Like that 8 iron is going to spin a little more. It's going to stop. It's going to come down at a steeper angle and stop. So don't be scared off on that, especially, and I can't stress it enough for the players with the more moderate swing speeds and getting up there. Could you maybe use some help? Perfect. I have my dad in a set of older hot launch irons. When I say older, like last few seasons. C hot launch irons changed his life golf wise. For the very exact reason we were just explaining with the power lofting and being able to hit 8 irons better, all of it. It's fantastic. All right.
Last but not least, right? We want to get into, they've got some new wedges that are out.
So we can go in both directions. I want to talk about the Super Spin first. The Super Spin VibraCore wedge. So this, again, it's an extremely forgiving wedge. It looks more traditional. It's in those lines of the more forgiving cavity back player wedges. Like it doesn't look big and beefy by any means, but it also isn't like a tiny forged exotics blade. It's just from address, pretty traditional, round pear shape from what I can tell. They have VibraCore technology in this thing, thus the name. So that heel, or I should say that sole pad and the thicker part of a wedge, it's hollow body. They have the VibraCore injected into there, which is creating forgiveness, but is also going to enhance that feel and dampen that more forgiving wedge a little bit. So even though they've given it some cavity to soften this guy up and make it a little more player friendly, it's going to still feel pretty good and still have response to it, as opposed to just, if you just had a hollow club, it would just feel dead. So it's not going to feel dead on you. Right. Bevel leading edge. So think of the leading edge of a wedge, and especially if you're not good with them, as I've been down this path before, if you don't have that bevel on it, that thing will just dig straight into the ground, right? So by beveling it and giving sort of a rounder sole and essentially giving it the bounce it needs, that thing's going to interact with the turf a lot smoother and sort of get a scoop underneath your ball, as opposed to just digging down into the dirt. That's not to say if you need to throw one straight down and take a big chunk, you can't do it, but it's going to be less resistant to those fat, gross wedge shots that we all know so well. Yeah. So that's a nice little feature. Again, this is a more forgiving wedge. They do make a forged exotics wedge for you great touchy, handsy wedge players.
That's what I play.
Yeah, look at you. You are a great handsy, touchy wedge player.
Thank you. That's true.
Maxed CNC grooves. So they're computer milled, right? As opposed to running them across some sort of band mill by hand or whatever, right? So they just get very exact to the USGA tolerances, which means they're going to be sharper without going overboard and being illegal. Listen, especially if you're not the best golfer in the world, take all the help you can get while staying legal. Heck, maybe even go illegal. I don't care. Have a little fun out there. But these wedges have the deepest grooves they can legally give you, with precise tolerances from their CNC machines. All right. What shafts do they have in here? They're using UST Mamiya graphite shafts, 45 to 60 grams if you want to go that route, or you can do a True Temper XP85. That's what you have in the Super Spin. I haven't hit this year's, obviously, as we've talked, but I hit last year's Super Spin wedge, and again, shockingly good at that value. You will be hard pressed to find the same quality at this price point in the market. My 2 cents. I don't think anybody's making a wedge at this price point for this type of player.
No, I don't think they are either.
They just aren't.
Yeah.
So it's a great option. Now, I don't know a ton about the history of that. The last year's E522 and this year's E523 wedge, their heritage. I want to say, what was it called? Let me look through here. Do they have the quote? No, there was like this original old tour edge wedge. Everybody was making their guaranteed get out of any tough lie wedge. Yeah. They had one, and they brought back that spirit in the E series wedge. And man, I'll tell you, that thing worked. It reminded me of like the old alien wedge, where it's you could just like literally just throw your club at it from 17 feet away, and the ball would still somehow pop out or whatever. It was incredible. So same thing, Houdini sole in this E523 wedge. In short, it's controlling the center of gravity, keeping it so it's easy to just, you remember with your E wedges, like basically if you throw the wedge at the ball, it's going up and going forward. When you need that level of forgiveness, that's all you can ask for. All right. Yep. This isn't for this really isn't for the touchy wedge player. This is for someone who goes, I can't hit a wedge. I need every single bit of help I can get, especially out of pesky sand traps. I need that ball to get up in the air and go forward. This thing is going to do it for you. Yep. So it does have a wide sole, but it's not super over the top, but I don't know. I used that alien wedge reference before. Those things were like the size of a hockey puck, those soles back in the day. This isn't anything like that, but it's still thick. It's a moderate enough shape to be playable and not only lend itself to one shot I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, I think from what I recall playing those wedges, or the E521 wedges, that it was actually like a confidence boosting club, because you knew that thing wasn't going to stick. Mm-hmm. You knew it was going to get through sand. It was going to get through heavy rough, whatever. So you didn't have to really think about much. You didn't have to think about the lie. You're just like, I'm just going to swing my swing.
Yeah.
And exactly. Up and out it went.
And that's, I mean, I can't stress that enough. Everything this club has, so they have a deep undercut cavity. Again, that's helping get that center of gravity low and deep as possible. Mm-hmm. What does that do? Up and out. That's it. Up and out. Yep. The face is larger. The leading edge is round, much like I described before. Rounder makes it not want to dig and easier to bounce. So up, out. That's it. That's what we want this thing to do. Nice little touch here, though. Full face grooves on this guy. So
really,
you aren't good at finding the center of the face. You get a little toward the heel, a little toward the toe. In theory, you aren't going to lose out on spin because you have grooves going all the way out to the end.
That's fun.
That's really nice and is super forgiving. Up and out.
For sure.
My 2 cents. All right. That was a marathon. I did not predict this being like that, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
A full That Range Life episode that we talked about this, but whatever. It's fine.
Well, and I'll be honest with all of you listening. I mean, if you're still with us, this is a condensed version. I could have a 2.5 hour conversation about every single one of these.
It's true.
We're not done. Wait till we get these things in hand and make more videos and stuff.
It's true. Yeah. So just as Bill mentioned, we will be making more videos about this stuff, review stuff, encore stuff, the whole gamut. So subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. If you have any questions, if there's anything that we haven't covered, ask them in the comments, and we'll answer them. There's a link in the description for both the podcast and the YouTube channel, where you can go and see pictures. It's going to be on Bill's website, drivingrangeheroes.com. You can read all about it. You can see the pictures, all that good stuff. He'll have all that information on there, so you can go there and find it. Otherwise, follow Bill at Range Heroes on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And you can follow me at Chris McEwen on all those same places, as well as TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? That's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we will see you either in the next That Range Life flagship or That Range Life Gear Talk.